Welcome to The Built World Around You, the podcast where we explore the people, ideas, and innovations shaping residential and commercial construction, as well as all the industries connected to it. Each week, we're going to sit down with thought leaders, rising stars, and real problem solvers tackling today's toughest challenges. From job site breakthroughs to boardroom strategies, we're here to share the lessons, the struggles, and the success stories that are building tomorrow's world right now. So grab your hard hat, sharpen your pencil, let's go to work. Welcome to the Built World Around You. I am your host, Bobby Thompson, president of Thompson Group Ventures. I am very excited for today's episode. We're going to have Mark Nosal on the show. I've known Mark for 8 years. He's been a part of my personal career, and he's just an all-around leader that's led companies from regionals to nationals, and I'm just very excited to have him on the show. He's going to share his journey. He's going to share his leadership methodology, and there's a lot of nuggets that I've had over the years that came from Mark, so couldn't be more excited to have him on the show. Without further ado, Mr. Mark Nosal. Mark.
Bobby, great to see you.
Great to see you as well, sir. Thank you so much for joining the show.
So happy to be here. Thanks very much for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, so, I've known you for a few years, but for those folks that don't know you or may not have met you yet, who are you and what do you do?
Right. So a residential home builder, as well as developer, and I lead a division for a major home building and development company here in the U.S. and have done so now for the past 12 years in several different roles, and just very thrilled. It's a very exciting position with a lot of responsibility, variety, and opportunity to problem solve and lead and meet some great people.
I love that. With it being such a people business in all industries, it's a people business, but none are more consistent with that mantra than the construction industry, and specifically residential construction industry. And so you've now led teams in Maryland, where I currently am, in other locations as well. What's the through line that you find between leading teams, no matter the region that you're building in?
Well, I think you put your finger on it, Bobby. It's the people connection, whether it is your governmental relationships, relationships with your team, relationships with your vendors, all of those, they all matter every single day on all levels, and developing, nurturing those relationships and building the trust in those relationships. I think it's key.
Yeah. And it comes to mind, and I don't know if you remember this or not. As a young construction leader, you gave me some sage advice as I was, coming into a leadership role and having direct reports. You mentioned meeting people where they are, and not to assume that everyone is thinking like I think or has drive like I have drive, and meeting people specifically where they are and relating to them where they are. Where do you get that type of advice? Because it's one of the keystones to my career. But for you, where does that generate from, and has that been the same in your career as well?
Well, Bobby, first of all, the simple fact that I said one thing to you over the years that you've taken with you and has helped you along the way, I'm just so excited to hear that. I don't think of myself as ever having very sage advice. I think it comes from a lot of sources. It's personal influences. It is professional influences. It is some difficult lessons learned, perhaps, where I went into a situation and wasn't focused on meeting someone in their place. I continue to experience today that what I may have in my mind that is so clear when I feel like I'm conveying it to someone else, their takeaway can be very different simply because their frame of reference to the conversation is so different from mine. It's communication, it's listening, it's trying to make sure that you're meeting somebody in their space and you've got the connection.
That's great. And once you have that connection, and this is the difficult piece that I think folks struggle with as leaders. So wherever you are in your career, if you're listening to the show, you're watching the show, um, this human element piece of it is something that will serve you and others for the long term. I mean, 8 years from now, all right, we're going to be talking about the folks that you've touched in your career. Again, I'm sure of it, but um, what's the through line in that relationship building in those connections? Why do you think people gravitate towards leadership that sees them as they are?
That's a great question. You know, I what comes to mind is I try and I keep a note on my calendar every single morning as one of the first notes that I see to be intentional. And I mean
Mm,
that intentionality from the business perspective, from whether it's analysis or whether it's a conversation throughout the day, to try not to take for granted what you know, and bring into things and try to make sure and reconfirm, get back in the same place with someone. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
yeah,
that intentionality, and I don't know that any of us are. We're certainly not perfect at it. I don't know that any of us are great about it. The reminder, I do find it helps me, particularly in moments when I'm feeling, stress, when I'm uncertain what the next step should be. Sometimes I step back and think, okay, like let's go back to the basics here
right.
and evaluate, try to, just make sure that we're being objective and intentional, right? So, does that even? I don't know if I even started to answer your question there, but
No, no, you definitely did. So, and I, just to kind of add on, right, that intentionality, I find that if you're doing something with intention, there's probably a genuine, authentic take on it or application to it because you're being intentional. You're showing up as your true, authentic self for someone or trying to engage and explore that person intentionally. That I see that as being genuine, and I find that people will always know that you're wearing a mask, right? If you're faking it, for those leaders out there, that you're not going to be in the best of moods every day. Like that's just the reality of life. But doing it anyway, and making sure that you're bringing your real self to the conversation, and not trying to do it or check a box, because that'll telegraph immediately, and then you lose ground with your employees, your teams, your peers when you're checking boxes. Do you feel the same way, Mark? Is that
oh,
something
I
that you
do.
see?
I believe you're spot on there, Bobby. I think that that's true, and also I think that goes back to the building trust components of this. Um,
Mhm.
whether it is as a leader, your operation of your business and your company trusting your instincts and strategies that they're aligned with the company's goals, or whether it is a personal relationship with an employee or a vendor or government official, someone else that we interact with every day. Um, I think if you've built that trust, then they're going to understand that there's going to be times when all of us are not at our best, and
That's
that
right.
yeah, it'll help you carry through those situations.
So what we're really talking about is building strong relationships, I think. And when I think about strong relationships in my mind's eye, the ones that I have that have stood the test of time, they always have that trust that you're talking about in them. And because you can lean on that individual, you understand that that individual is gonna, if they're gonna say yes, it means a real yes, and if they're gonna say no, it's with a reason. And so that no, and I like that people should feel comfortable, right? They should have that psychological safety to be able to say no, and whatever the reason might be is real, and that not ruin a relationship. I think we get so in our way that we think that everyone should be saying yes to all things, or accommodating all things, and that's not the reality of it, I find. What are your thoughts on that?
Agree. We've probably arrived at that conclusion as a result of having said yes, uh, being reluctant to say no, and you find yourself with too much. You're not able to do what you said you were going to do as well as you'd like to. Maybe you're still meeting the other person's expectations, but maybe you're not meeting your own because you've just taken too much on. And so, I think it's important, very important
Mhm.
to be able to say no. Yeah, I think that's critical.
So you've been in the industry now. Your career has spanned multiple builders, multiple roles within the industry, and so you've led teams in a number of ways. How did you get started in the construction industry?
Well, interestingly, I started partially as a result of a recession. So in the early
Okay.
90s, I graduated from college. I had a small contracting company at that time, and it was growing. But the recession really gave it a premature end. And I had a fresh engineering degree and really struggled to find any entry level opportunities in engineering. And since I was familiar and comfortable in the construction environment, my degree was in civil engineering. I thought, it might be a good idea to look for a construction related position. I'd done some trade work in college, and I was fortunate to get an entry level position with a local home builder and developer. And turned out that developed into a 9-year relationship that gave me many experiences that I think are still foundational today, for the way that I go about my days.
That's awesome. So we're all a sum of our parts, right? And so your journey and how you've navigated it. Um, what are some of the key tenets that you're talking about that have kind of made the building blocks of your career that kind of stay with you? If you had to give one blueprint, one example for those folks that are trying to join the industry today, what would it be?
You know, be 100% in, I think is maybe
Mm.
one of the biggest things that I've taken over the years. And I've certainly had times when, in reflecting back, I don't think I was 100% committed. And this is another thing I think of every day. I've chosen to be an employee in my career. I love it. I love my role. I love this industry. And the the fact that any industry, but certainly ours, experiences its ups and downs. It has its difficulties. We're not perfect. None of us are. And it's very difficult business, frankly. And
Yeah.
so, um, that being 100% in is sort of like not just the winning attitude, but it's the commitment that you're going to win and the commitment that you're not going to lose. And sometimes that means you have to do things that might not be your favorite. There have been many weekends and long nights over my career, and I watch, still true today, but I also watch many of those around me in their growing careers with
Mhm.
that level of commitment. And that comes from a refusal to lose. They've said that they're going to do something and they're going to stand behind that. And I try to stay true to that as well. So, I think if you want to be in, go for it, be a hand
Right.
raiser, be 100% engaged, do everything you can to help that company. And if you're in a role like you're in, Bobby, the same, but also you also have the responsibility of being your own visionary, right? You have to set that lofty goal that maybe when you set it, you might not even be 100% believing you're going to get there. But if you don't set that, you certainly are not going to get there.
I love that.
And as an employee, my job is to listen to that vision that's being set by our executive leadership at the top of the company, understand that, interpret that for my sphere, and
Mm.
execute it every day and be 100%.
100% in. I appreciate you sharing that. So What I am hearing is that grittiness, right? That refusal to fail, that grit, and that dedication and ownership of being 100% in will win the day. And I think that's great advice for those in any level of their career. Like you're saying, you're not going to be 1,000%. It's not possible to do something at 1,000%, but you can show up committed, and you can show up hungry and driven because you have that intrinsic motivation to do the thing, to refuse to fail. I love that, Mark, and I appreciate you sharing that. I find that in the markets today, right, and we're all in this weird uncertainty, this economic uncertainty in the industry that's driving some uncontrollable variables, and folks really get shaken up when that happens. And that commitment, that 100% that you're talking about, just to get after it and refuse to fail, I think we'll see them through those tougher tides. Um, is that something that you've learned from being around in the recession and the downturns, or where does that messaging come from for you?
I think after 35 years in this business, Bobby, it comes from, I'm sure it's a sum of its parts, many small influences, but probably the biggest influence is watching those that I look up to and have reported
Mm.
through or been adjacent to professionally, either in the same company or another company that's in the same business, and watching the commonalities. And one of those commonalities that seems to go along with success is the enthusiasm, the energy, and the commitment that you're in and you're going to win. And I just think that's a very common theme. And I'd also like to just go back to a word that you use that I love. It's one of my favorite words. It's grit. And I've tried to teach my kids over the years that knowledge is really important, and I think building knowledge and learning and these things we're discussing this morning, trying to meet someone in their place and listening, those things are all important. One of the things that I think will benefit all of us just so immensely through our lives is grit. And if you've
Absolutely.
got it and you display it, whether it is whether you're a triathlete and you just want to keep striving, or you're in the military and you've got a mission, or you're in residential development and home building, and it's a market condition. Grit, it matters. I think it really matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's that one resiliency nugget, right? If you take a person that has grit and resiliency and you put them against someone that doesn't, and that will have that gray cloud or hit an obstacle and stop, their performances are going to be night and day. So definitely, I agree with you 100%. So that grit that we're talking about actually taps into high levels of problem solving. Essentially, for me, I see grit when life punches you in the face, because it's inevitable. Uh, my personal journey right now is an embodiment of that experience. Right, having something happen to you in your career or in your life that was unexpected, and how you respond to it will define you. And so, being a highly skilled problem solver, in my opinion, will also win the day, because you're not going to stay there in indecision. You're actually going to figure out how do you overcome this obstacle or this time period or problem, and get after it with that same 100% dedication, that grit and resiliency to move on to the next. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Oh, Bobby, yes, this is huge in our industry. I mean, the number of times that we are developing, constructing, attempting to gain approval for something that is, it's a one time. It maybe is the only time something has, at least in our knowledge, been assembled in this way or in these
That's right.
site conditions. It is all being done out in the open. It is completely visible to Our regulatory friends in the government. It is completely visible to our customers, to our peers, to ourselves. We have to be very adept at problem solving. One of the first lessons I learned in this business, going all the way back to my first construction position in that recession in the early 90s, is I was told my job is to find it, solve it, and fix it. And if I don't lose track of things and I get them fixed, I will be successful. And I've never forgotten that very simple lesson. The solve it part, it's critical.
Find it, solve it, fix it. I think that right there is this is going to be something that we're going to share to the masses, because that's something that everyone can follow. That's great information. So for those that are coming into the industry, and we have a good bit of viewers and listeners and subscribers that are just entering the industry, or they're trying to figure out if they want to enter the industry even. How does one, in your opinion, hone that problem solving skill set?
Part of this, I think we're on this discussion this morning where so many of these items thread together, Bobby. That if you are 100% committed, and part of that commitment is that your responsibility is, let's say you're building homes, let's say you're working in the field, and you're committed, and part of your responsibility is about your customer, and part of it is about your company, part of it is to your own personal integrity, to do it properly and to do it right. And you will inevitably face, probably on the first home you build and probably on the last, some detail that's been drawn, some architectural assembly, some use of parts, some engineering detail that maybe you've never seen before. Maybe it doesn't look right to you. Maybe you're looking at it, it's already standing, and it does not make sense. Don't just let it go. Ask the questions. Go to your experts. Find your engineer. Where's your architect? Call your boss. Get somebody else that you know has built that type of home many times before, and learn about it and understand. And maybe what you're seeing is perfectly fine. And what you learn is that when I see this, now I understand how it works. Maybe what you're seeing is not okay. And one of the things about our built environment is that these things that are not okay, they still typically are good enough to stand for a while, but they may result in some chronic ceiling crack that you get later. There might be some little leak that you don't see for 3 or 4 years. It just takes you back to the fact that not right is not right. And the better you are at getting it right the first time, the better it is for our customers. And if there's one thing in residential construction that I think anybody coming into our business needs to be focused on, we're here for our customers, right? We are customer centric. They are our consumer. They need to want what we have, and we need to do a good job for them. And so putting yourself in that place, listening, hearing the voice of the customer and understanding what they would want, which in that scenario is, don't just leave it there. If you're questioning it, go make sure it's right before you move on, right? Yeah.
That's fantastic. And that's, I 100% agree with you on that. So, and that absolutely threads together, like you're saying. If you were bought in 100% and you're giving it your all, and you stand by and you own that accountability for making sure that it's right, and it's right the first time, that's absolutely going to win the day and have that longevity as well. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So we've talked about a few things, Mark, today. I would love to know, because you've been impactful to my career, would love to know, who's been impactful to your career? What's one person that stood out in your career, and what did they do?
Bobby, really, I feel like it would be unfair for me to name one person. It has been a cornucopia of influences. I have been very fortunate to have a really always great leaders, and the same is true today. And I'm continuing to learn lessons and change my approach toward business as a result of what I learned today from great leaders. It's an accumulation, and so I think it's a matter of paying attention. similar to the last short discussion, it's understanding the why behind some of the leadership that I've received, and you take away the things that I think fit who you are the most, and they start to become a piece of it, right? And some of those influences have come from some very famous individuals in our industry. Bob Toll at the top of Toll Brothers for many years, and many takeaways from him. And some, honestly, they've come from some people that just work very, very hard every day, and they're out there in the field. They're dirty, but man, they know stuff. They really do. They understand things that those of us that spend a lot of time in the office, we don't ever get. And I think listening from all of those levels, it creates great takeaways. So that really is, it'd be unfair for me to point at any single individual, but there have been many that have contributed, and I'm very appreciative.
No, I definitely understand that, Mark, and I appreciate your time today. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about? I know we dug into a lot in a very short period of time. Is there anything that you feel, based on our conversation, that you would want to put out there into the universe?
I have nothing further on my mind, Bobby, other than it has been really terrific to see you. It's been too long, and I've loved this conversation, and I cannot wait to see where you go in your new venture. Exciting times.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate you as always. And until next time, I will definitely see you as soon as possible. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Back at you. Thanks, Bobby. Take care.
Well, folks, I'm telling you, we're fast and furious here. But if you like what you're hearing, definitely don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. We are also seeing a lot of fundraiser and partnerships coming in. So if you would like to become a sponsor, please reach out to me at bobby@thompsongroupventures.com for sponsorship opportunities. Until next time, we hope that you're having a great time in the built world around you. Thank you for listening to The Built World Around You. If today's conversation gave you new insights or sparked fresh ideas, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps more builders, leaders, and innovators join the conversation. Until next time, keep building smarter, leading stronger, and shaping the world around you.